Do you even realize your position? Well, I had to do overtime today. You have to obey the curfew. Don't use work as an excuse as usual. My husband raised his voice and continued to berate me. He who had saved me from loneliness through marriage, now, several years later, is no longer the same. Yeah, I held on to that belief that someday he'd return to the way he was back then. I finally realized how wrong I was. Well then, that's fine. I'll discard what I don't need anymore. I'm not your slave, I declared. My name is Aaron, 30 years old. I met my husband, Jake, 3 years ago. At that time, I had just lost both my parents and was feeling down. Invited by a colleague from work, I attended a casual blind date with no expectations. There, I met Jake. Working at an IT company, he seemed reluctant, probably invited to fill up the numbers. I, with only the faint hope of meeting a nice person, didn't make much effort to engage in conversation. However, perhaps due to stress from work, I ended up drinking more than usual that day. Feeling sick halfway through, I quietly slipped out to get some fresh air outside. No, I definitely drank too much, I thought as I rested in front of the restaurant. I heard a voice from behind. "Are you okay?" Turning around, I saw Jake. "Ah, sorry," I suddenly felt unwell. "You're not feeling well, right? I'll take you home." It's okay. Here, take your stuff. I've already paid for our share." "Huh, then I have to pay you my share." "Don't worry about it. Can you take a taxi? If not, we can walk." In the past, I was quite quick to fall in love. His kindness touched my heart, and before I knew it, I was in love. A few days later, I invited him to dinner. From that moment, we grew closer and became a couple. Whenever I cried thinking of my deceased parents, he was always there for me with a gentle smile. He always said, "Even if you cry, your parents won't come back. I know if you keep crying like this, your parents won't be at peace, will they? But no matter what happens in the future, I'll be by your side. I won't let you be alone, so please don't cry anymore, Jake. Yeah, I'm here for you." His words were such a relief to me. Since then, I stopped crying over my parents. Soon after, we decided to get married. As we headed to the city hall for our marriage registration, I truly believed that I would be with him for the rest of my life. Although our meeting was an unenthusiastic blind date, it led me to meet him, but I still hadn't realized the true nature of my beloved Jake. The first time I felt uncomfortable was about 6 months after we got married. Jake suddenly asked me, "Hey, Aaron, sorry, but could you chip in a bit more for living expenses starting next month?" "Huh, is something wrong?" "Well, my parents asked me if I could send them some money starting next month. But I thought your dad was a civil servant. Doesn't he get a stable salary?" "I don't really get it either, but it seems like they're having a hard time financially. So I want to give them a bit of our living expenses. Is that okay?" I was very surprised by Jake's sudden request. My father-in-law works at the city hall and has been working there for over 30 years. While he doesn't have a particularly high salary, he doesn't make so little that they would struggle to make ends meet. Is my in-laws' financial situation really that dire that they're asking their son for money? Despite feeling somewhat uneasy, I couldn't simply refuse Jake's request. So, reluctantly, I decided to increase our living expenses by an extra $500, starting from the next month. Then, 2 months later, to my utter disbelief, Jake made another outrageous request. "Hey, Aaron, sorry, but could you increase it by another $500, starting next month?" "Wait a minute. If I do that, then I'll be paying almost all of the living expenses." "What's the problem? I'm struggling to send money to my parents, you know." "I understand that, but $1,000 is too much. I want to save money, too." "Save money? You can do that any time, right? This is the only time I can support my parents. Are you going to refuse me?" I was too frightened by Jake's intense demeanor to say anything. It was the first time I'd ever seen Jake, who is usually calm, so angry. He mercilessly threw harsh words at me as I stumbled to respond. Hey, are you even listening? Geez, I've always thought this about you. Whenever something doesn't go your way, you just shut up, don't you? Jake, I married a plain woman like you, but why can't you even listen to your husband properly? That's not. I didn't mean to. Stop whining. You shut up and listen to me. If you have time to talk back, you should hurry up and clean the house. Jake roughly grabbed a beer can and threw it towards me. It hit me hard on the head, and the contents spilled onto the floor. Pointing at it, he yelled, "Clean up this mess now, you idiot." Unable to retort, I had no choice but to obey his orders. From that day on, Jake's behavior became increasingly tyrannical. 2 years into our marriage, I found myself living in misery every day. Since Jake's authoritarian behavior began, several rules were added. First, I had to cover all living expenses. Second, I had to schedule everything according to Jake's wishes. Third, I had to see him off and greet him every day without fail. There were other rules, too, like doing cleaning and laundry every day, cooking meals with precise calorie calculations, and making sure to be home by 6 p.m., no matter how busy work was. There were so many rules that I felt like screaming. I also work full-time, so I can't dedicate all my time to Jake. Still, I strain myself daily to avoid upsetting him. Some might say, if you hate it that much, just get a divorce. I knew it would be better, but I still believed that Jake would return to being the kind man he used to be. Then, one day, after finishing dinner, I checked to see if Jake was asleep before taking a shower. Since I've been ordered to take a shower after he falls asleep, this has become my routine. After taking a shower and returning to the living room, I noticed an envelope sticking out of Jake's bag. What's this? Normally, I wouldn't touch his personal belongings, but this day I couldn't help but be curious. Before I knew it, I reached for the envelope. On the front, it said, "Pay stub" with Jake's name written on it. Out of a moment of curiosity, I took out the pay stub and checked the amount. To my disbelief, the displayed amount was astonishingly low, $1,400. My husband's pay stub showed a net pay of only $1,400 for working 22 days a month full-time on weekdays. This amount seemed impossible. Can this be true? Jake, working for an IT company, is earning only $1,400. It doesn't make sense. And how could he send money to his parents in this situation? For about a year and a half, I had been covering all the living expenses, but little did I know there were such circumstances behind it. The next day, I decided to wait for Jake to return without preparing dinner so we could have a proper discussion. As soon as Jake returned home, I immediately broached the subject. "Hey, Jake, can we talk for a moment?" "Huh, what's up? And where's dinner? I've told you countless times to have it ready by the time I get back. I have something important to discuss." "Important? Jake, is it true that you work for an IT company?" "Huh, why are you asking all of a sudden?" "I saw your pay stub. It's not normal for someone working for an IT company to only earn $1,400, right?" As I asked, Jake let out a heavy sigh and began speaking with irritation. "Why are you snooping through my things without permission? It's disgusting. I'm sorry for looking without permission, but why did you lie to me?" "Huh, I'm not lying. You must have just misread it." "No, I saw it with my own eyes. Your salary was $1,400. I told you it's not true. Ick, I feel sick. I'm going out to eat." With heavy footsteps, Jake left the living room. The door to the entrance was slammed shut, and I snapped back to reality. What's going on? Why does he want to hide his salary? Even if he doesn't want it known, we're still husband and wife. This can't continue. That's what I thought, so I decided to call my in-laws and confirm the truth. "Hello," answered my NIL, and I immediately broached the topic. I'm sorry to call so late. I wanted to ask you something." "Aaron, it's been a while. What do you want to ask? Is something wrong? From my NIL's demeanor, it didn't seem like they were having any financial difficulties. Her voice was as cheerful and lively as usual. Despite my confusion, I firmly asked, are you currently facing financial difficulties? Huh, what's this all of a sudden? Oh, I'm sorry it's sudden. I just wanted to know. Could it be that you're considering sending us money? No, it's not that. In that case, don't worry. My husband still holds a position and his salary is more than enough. I used to work myself, so we have plenty of savings. Then what about the financial support from Jake? What? I've never received anything like that from Jake. He has never even mentioned sending us money. For the past year and a half, Jake was supposedly sending money to his parents. That's why I've been covering all our living expenses. But my MIL claims she's never received any money like that. There's absolutely no reason for her to lie in this situation. Finally, I realized Jake's lies. That man has been deceiving me all along. But why? The next day, I took a half day off from work and headed to a detective agency I had looked up in advance to request an investigation into Jake's background. 2 weeks later, when I went to pick up the results after work, the agent looked at me with a grave expression. I'm afraid your husband's workplace is not an IT company. I see. Then where does he work? He's a janitor. He might go to IT companies for cleaning jobs, but he's definitely not an employee of an IT company. Okay, as expected, my bad feeling turned out to be true. Jake clearly lied to me. Letting out a deep sigh, I could see the agent wearing a bitter expression. What's wrong? I asked, and he began to speak slowly again. There's something else I need to talk to you about. Something else? Yes, actually. What I was told next was a cruel truth that I wanted to avoid. I received an envelope containing the investigation results and returned home in a daze. It was 7:00 p.m. when I opened the front door. Jake was waiting there with a fierce expression. Hey, what time do you think it is? Sorry, I had to do overtime today. It was obvious that Jake was lying. Even though it was clear that I had the upper hand, I couldn't help but apologize to him out of habit. Seeing me like that, he opened his mouth with confidence. Do you even realize your position? Well, I had to do overtime today. You have to obey the curfew. Don't use work as an excuse. No, I didn't mean to make excuses. Then what about my dinner? If you slack off on housework, I'll divorce you, you useless woman. At that moment, a dull pain ran through my cheek. When I realized that Jake had slapped me, the tension that had been building up finally snapped. Starting with lies, then control, verbal abuse, and now violence. How much longer does he plan to treat me like a fool? I'm not your slave. Jake once saved me from loneliness. I thought I could be happy with him. That's what I believed when we got married 2 years ago. Despite being insulted countless times, I believed in him all this time. I thought he would change, but he's not the same person he used to be. No, maybe everything was a lie from the beginning. It doesn't matter now. It all ends here and now. I took a deep breath and looked straight at him. Okay then, I'll leave. What? What are you saying? You want a divorce, right? I'll leave, so do whatever you want. Hey, what the hell are you saying? You're not serious, are you? I won't do it. Divorce is a joke. Surprised by my easy acceptance of divorce, Jake began to panic. Ignoring his words, I continued, whether you're joking or not, I'm serious. I'm packing my bags, so don't interfere. Wait, I'm not getting divorced. I don't agree. You'd agree. Fine, you'll end up agreeing anyway. Huh, what's that supposed to mean? Interrupting Jake's words, I handed him the envelope I received from the detective agency. It contained evidence of his affair. With those photos laid out in front of him, his expression drained of color in an instant. Seizing the opportunity, I spoke coldly. You're having an affair, right? Lies about your job, lies about sending money home, and on top of that, using the money you made me pay for living expenses to pamper your mistress. That's not true. This is, come on. I've already confirmed it with my NIL, and these photos were investigated by a professional detective. No, clearly starting to stutter. I was completely fed up with him. He only cared about saving himself. To put an end to this relationship, I spoke loudly. I can't believe you turned out to be such a despicable person. I may have been fooled, but what you did is beyond redemption. Lying, extorting money from your wife, and on top of that, cheating. You're the scum of the earth. Please calm down. I want to apologize. Huh, you're not seriously going to ask for forgiveness now, are you? You've been acting like a tyrant, manipulating me as you pleased all this time, just like a maid. I'm sorry. Let's start over, okay? Start over? Why don't you face reality? You have nowhere to run anymore. No matter what, I'll drag you down to hell by any means necessary. Get ready for it. Those words seemed to hit him hard as my husband fell to his knees with a groan. Ignoring him, I packed my things and left the house. Later on, I divorced Jake with the help of a lawyer. I demanded a lump sum payment of $30,000 in compensation from him and $15,000 from his mistress. With his low income, Jake sought help from his father, but of course he was refused. Not only that, he was disowned by his in-laws. In the end, even his mistress abandoned him, and he was left with no one to rely on. For him, only a life of loneliness and misery awaits, but I feel no sympathy. Considering how much he looked down on me, he deserves whatever suffering comes his way. As for me, I started a new life by moving into company housing. Commuting became easier, and having supportive colleagues in the same housing complex was reassuring. Although I ended up divorced, I have no regrets whatsoever. What matters most is that I can live life on my own terms. Marriage isn't the only path to happiness. From now on, I'll walk a path where I can be true to myself.